Almost every major battle in House of the Dragon leaves behind a single moment that changes the course of history. But this episode does something even more dangerous. It proves that dragons aren't the only weapons shaping this war anymore. Pride, fear, and one devastating decision quietly redraw the battlefield long before another army even raises its banners. By the time the credits roll, one of the conflict's most powerful figures is gone. Alliances are hanging by a thread, and the path to the Iron Throne looks more unpredictable than ever. The biggest shock isn't just who dies. It's what that death reveals about everyone still fighting. For weeks, the Dance of the Dragons has been building toward larger battles, bigger betrayals, and impossible choices. Episode 6 finally delivers on that promise, but not in the way many people expected. Instead of celebrating glorious victories, the story reminds us that wars are often decided by exhaustion, desperation, and mistakes that can't be taken back. That's what makes this chapter feel so different from the episodes that came before it. Every conversation carries weight. Every silence feels intentional. And every character walks away from an encounter just a little more changed than before. The biggest talking point is, of course, the Battle of the Butcher's Ball. Fans of George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood knew this confrontation was coming, but the show still manages to make it feel brutal in its own unique way. Instead of focusing only on spectacle, the episode spends time showing the emotional collapse happening inside the Green Forces. Criston Cole entered this war believing discipline, strategy, and unwavering loyalty would secure victory. Now he's forced to confront a completely different reality. His soldiers are exhausted. Supplies are running thin. Confidence has disappeared. The campaign that once looked unstoppable now feels like it's slowly falling apart from within. That's an important shift, because Criston has always represented more than just another commander. Ever since Season 1, he's embodied absolute devotion, mixed with dangerous certainty. Whether serving Alicent, supporting Aegon, or helping place the Greens on the throne, he rarely questioned his own decisions. He believed he was defending order. Episode 6 quietly dismantles that belief piece by piece. By the time events reach their tragic conclusion, it becomes painfully clear that conviction alone isn't enough to survive the dance. One subtle detail many viewers may have overlooked is how the episode constantly contrasts confidence with uncertainty. Early scenes present military leaders speaking with authority, making bold declarations about what comes next. But almost every prediction falls apart within minutes. Plans fail. Messengers arrive with terrible news. Trusted allies disappear. That recurring pattern isn't accidental. It's reinforcing one of the central themes of the season. Nobody truly controls this war anymore. That idea becomes even stronger once the battle begins. The Butcher's Ball isn't portrayed as a glorious clash between heroic armies. It's messy, confusing, and frightening. Soldiers struggle to understand where attacks are coming from. Command structures begin collapsing under pressure. Survival replaces strategy. The sequence feels intentionally chaotic because that's exactly what the dance has become. It's no longer about carefully planned campaigns. It's about who can adapt before everything falls apart. Criston Cole's final moments carry enormous symbolic weight. Rather than receiving the kind of legendary ending many expected, his fate underscores the brutal honesty of this world. Reputation doesn't grant immunity. Honor doesn't stop an arrow. Years of influence can disappear in seconds. That harsh reality has always been part of George R.R. Martin's storytelling, and Episode 6 embraces it completely. What's especially fascinating is how different characters are likely to interpret Criston's death. Supporters of the Greens may see him as a fallen hero who remained loyal until the end. Others will argue that his own ambition helped ignite the very conflict that consumed him. The episode never tells viewers which perspective is correct. Instead, it leaves enough emotional space for both interpretations to exist at the same time. That's a hallmark of the strongest episodes in the franchise. The best conflicts aren't built around obvious heroes and villains. They're built around flawed people making choices they believe are necessary. While the battlefield delivers the episode's loudest shock, some of the quieter moments may have even greater long-term consequences. Rhaenyra's storyline continues revealing how dramatically the burden of leadership is changing her. Earlier in the series, many of her decisions were guided by caution and the hope of avoiding unnecessary bloodshed. Now that hope feels increasingly distant. Every loss pushes her closer to accepting harsher solutions, and Episode 6 suggests she's beginning to understand that mercy can sometimes be interpreted as weakness. That's one of the episode's smartest pieces of character development because it doesn't happen through a dramatic speech. Instead, it's reflected in small expressions, measured responses, and carefully chosen words. The woman who once believed compromise could save the realm is slowly becoming someone prepared to make impossible sacrifices. It's a transformation that feels earned because we've watched every painful step along the way. Another interesting layer involves the reactions of those closest to her. Trust has become one of the rarest resources in Westeros. Every advisor brings personal ambitions. Every victory creates new political complications. Even when characters agree on a goal, they often disagree completely on how to reach it. That growing tension gives nearly every council scene an underlying sense of danger. The audience knows that one poorly chosen decision could trigger another devastating chain reaction. Meanwhile, Aemond's time away from the traditional battlefield continues, adding a different kind of suspense. His interactions around Harrenhal aren't driven by sword fights or dragonfire. They're psychological. Every conversation feels layered with uncertainty. Every vision and every mysterious encounter raises new questions. Instead of providing easy answers, the show seems far more interested in exploring what's happening inside Aemond's mind than simply portraying him as an unstoppable warrior. That creative choice matters because Aemond has evolved into one of the series' most unpredictable characters. He's incredibly intelligent, fiercely determined, and terrifyingly capable. But Episode 6 reminds us that even the strongest individuals can become vulnerable when certainty begins slipping away. Whether the strange experiences surrounding him represent supernatural forces, emotional trauma, or a combination of both remains deliberately unclear. That ambiguity makes every scene involving him far more compelling. Before the episode reaches its final stretch, another pattern starts emerging. Nearly every major character is losing something they once relied on. Some lose trusted allies. Others lose confidence. Some lose the illusion that victory is only one battle away. That shared sense of loss connects storylines that might otherwise feel unrelated. Even when characters never meet on screen, they're experiencing the same emotional unraveling. And that's exactly why Episode 6 feels like a turning point instead of just another chapter in the war. The battlefield changes, but so do the people fighting on it. By the end of the hour, it's obvious that the dance has entered a far more dangerous phase, one where survival depends less on strength and more on who can adapt before the next devastating surprise arrives. If there's one thing this episode quietly proves, it's that the real battle isn't always happening on the battlefield. Some of the most important victories and the most devastating defeats take place inside the minds of the people leading the war. Episode 6 constantly shifts between physical conflict and psychological pressure, reminding us that every decision carries consequences long before a sword is ever drawn. One of the easiest details to miss comes from the way the episode frames authority. Throughout the hour, characters who once spoke with absolute confidence suddenly hesitate. Their words become shorter. Their pauses grow longer. It's a subtle storytelling technique, but it tells us everything we need to know. Power isn't disappearing because someone stronger has taken it away. It's disappearing because certainty has been replaced by doubt. That theme connects almost every major storyline. On the surface, both factions are still fighting for the Iron Throne. Underneath that political struggle, though, something much more personal is happening. The people who began this war, believing they understood the rules, are slowly realizing those rules no longer exist. Rhaenyra's storyline may be the clearest example of that transformation. Every major loss forces her to ask a question that no ruler wants to face. How much of yourself can you sacrifice before you become the very thing you once opposed? The episode never answers that question directly, but it keeps placing her in situations where compassion and survival seem impossible to balance. That's what makes her scenes so compelling. The writers aren't trying to convince us that every decision she makes is right. Instead, they're showing how leadership changes people over time. Every victory demands another compromise. Every defeat hardens someone who desperately wanted a different future. By the end of the episode, you can almost feel the weight sitting on her shoulders, even during the quietest conversations. There's another layer hiding beneath those scenes that many viewers may not have noticed. Earlier in the series, Rhaenyra often looked toward the people around her before making important choices. She listened, she questioned, she weighed different opinions. In episode 6, those moments become noticeably rarer. That's a fascinating visual clue because it suggests she's beginning to trust fewer voices than ever before. History has shown that isolation can be just as dangerous as military defeat. Kings and queens don't usually fall because they lack intelligence. They fall because they eventually stop hearing perspectives that challenge their own. Whether that's happening to Rhaenyra remains an open question, but the episode plants that possibility without drawing attention to it. On the green side, the emotional fallout from Criston Cole's fate reaches much further than a single battlefield. His death doesn't simply remove an experienced commander. It creates a vacuum. Someone has to fill that space, and nobody seems fully prepared for what comes next. That's where the political implications become especially interesting. Criston wasn't only respected for his military experience. He also served as a symbol of stability for many within the Green faction. Even people who questioned his judgment often trusted his willingness to act. Without that central figure holding different interests together, existing tensions become much harder to control. One of the smartest storytelling choices in episode 6 is that it refuses to celebrate anyone's losses. Even when one side gains an advantage, the victory feels temporary. Every success immediately creates another problem waiting just around the corner. That's exactly how George R.R. Martin's world has always operated. Winning one battle rarely means winning the war. Meanwhile, Aemond's storyline continues, adding an entirely different kind of mystery. His time around Harrenhal has become one of the show's most unpredictable threads because reality itself feels uncertain. Every conversation leaves room for interpretation. Every strange encounter raises new questions instead of delivering clear answers.